A welder would spend half a season on this wash plant probably if you were running it 24/7. Reduce maintenance, reduce downtime to plant moves. Two big things for us, so not our wash plant.
This is a jackpot so big it's almost unbelievable. A $400 million secret connected to a rusty, abandoned Trommel that was supposed to be worthless scrap metal. However, Parker Schnabel discovered that it was packed with forgotten gold. This old beast was a relic from a bygone era, left for dead in the wild. But Parker, with his Midas touch, saw more than just rust. He saw a golden opportunity and a hidden history. Tune in to see how Parker resurrected a metal monster and uncovered a gold conspiracy. Rust, rumors, and a river of gold. At first glance, the thing Parker Schnabel and his crew stumbled upon looked like a giant metal beast that had died and been swallowed by the forest. It was a trommel, a huge rotating drum machine used to wash gold out of dirt. But this one was ancient. It was covered in decades of grime, rust, and creeping vines, looking like it hadn't moved an inch in a very, very long time. Some fans watching would probably think Parker was crazy to even stop and look at it. Just a pile of junk, right? But Parker, he's got a different kind of eye for things, especially when it comes to gold.
Oh, yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah, there's some gold there. That's very good.
I'm shook.
This wasn't just any old piece of scrap. Back in its glory days, this gigantic steel drum was a powerhouse, churning through massive mountains of dirt every single day, separating out chunky nuggets and tiny, precious specks of gold. But here's the kicker. Unlike the super smart, high-tech wash plants Parker uses today, this old trommel wasn't built for catching every tiny bit. It was all about raw power and moving tons of material. Because of its old-school design, a whole lot of the finer gold, the really good stuff, just slipped through the cracks and got mixed back in with the dirt and tailings piles around the machine. And as Parker and his team would soon find out, all that lost gold had just been sitting there, completely untouched, for decades. It was like a piggy bank someone forgot about. But instead of pennies, it was filled with gold.
I mean, he had that twinkle of it in his eye when I asked him if he'd sell it, of like, probably could.
For years, there had been whispers among local miners about a forgotten, super-rich mining site hidden somewhere out in this remote area. Some old-timers claimed it was part of a huge operation that went bust and had to shut down in a hurry, leaving everything behind. Others believed the ground itself was still packed with untouched gold. But it was just talk, campfire stories. No one had ever actually dared to go deep into the wilderness to find out if the legends were true. That all changed when Parker Schnabel, known for his willingness to take massive risks, decided to follow the whispers. Some fans think Parker is just incredibly lucky, always stumbling onto these kinds of situations. But others argue it's his relentless research and his guts to chase down leads that others ignore that really pays off. As Parker climbed onto the rusty old trommel, brushing away layers of caked-on dirt and grime, something glinted in the weak sunlight, catching his eye. A tiny flicker of shiny yellow.
We started talking money a little bit, but by the time I pry it out of his hands, cut it up and get it in containers, ship it to Fairbanks.
At first, he probably thought it was just a trick of the light, maybe a piece of brass or something. But as he leaned in for a closer look, his heart must have started racing. This was gold, and not just a few tiny flakes. This was a serious, visible amount of gold, literally trapped inside the guts of the old broken machine. Parker knew right away this wasn't just some random find. This was big, but there was a massive king-size problem. The trommel wasn't just old and broken, it was completely wrecked. Years and years of being exposed to the harsh Yukon weather, the freezing winters, the wet springs, had left it rusted solid, jammed up, and barely even standing. If Parker wanted to get any of that trapped gold out, or process any of the potentially rich dirt around the site, he and his team had a monster job ahead of them. They had to bring this entire ancient machine back from the dead. And that, as any Gold Rush fan knows, is never an easy task. It was going to take a miracle, or just a whole lot of Parker's typical never-give-up attitude. While the crew was still trying to figure out how to even begin with the wrecked trommel, they made another incredible discovery. While clearing the overgrown area around the machine, they stumbled upon something hidden beneath layers of dirt and old debris, an untouched stockpile of old pay dirt. Just a giant pile of dirt that the original miners had dug up but never gotten around to washing. At first, it looked like any other pile of dirt, but when they took a sample and panned it for gold, their jaws dropped. The concentration of gold in this forgotten pile was off the charts, way, way higher than anything Parker had ever mined on his own claims before. This wasn't just a small bonus find. This was a potential gold mine just sitting there, a gift from the past, waiting to be processed.
It's definitely making me think about the two wash plant things. And the yardage of these two plants is about the kind of yardage that we're aiming for. So the yardage works.
The old trommel might be busted, but the ground around it was screaming gold. Parker knew he had to act fast. He didn't have weeks or months to build a full-scale wash plant out here in the middle of nowhere. So he decided to set up a temporary processing station, kind of like a mini wash plant, using a mix of old-school mining smarts and some modern gear he had on hand. This time, he wasn't going to let any gold slip away like the old-timers did. He was going to recover every single speck, and when they started running that rich old pay dirt, the results were absolutely insane. Day after day, the gold just kept piling up. The little jars they used for cleanups were getting full. Then bigger containers were getting full. The totals climbed higher and higher, and pretty soon Parker realized he wasn't just having a good week. He had stumbled onto one of the biggest, richest gold finds of his entire career. The sheer amount of gold they pulled from that forgotten pay dirt pile sent its value skyrocketing into the millions of dollars. What started as a wild goose chase for a rusty old machine had turned into an absolute jackpot, a testament to Parker's gut feeling. But this was just the gold found around the trommel. The real prize and the real mystery still lay with the machine itself and the secrets it held. The gold was pouring in, but the ancient trommel was still a rusted wreck, and a new discovery was about to prove that this sleeping giant was guarding a secret far bigger than anyone imagined. Unlocking a ghost miner's map. While Parker's crew was raking in millions from that forgotten pile of pay dirt next to the ancient trommel, a new, even more mind-blowing mystery started to unfold. As the team dug deeper, both literally into the land around the old mining site and figuratively into its history, they uncovered something that changed everything. Buried within a collection of dusty, forgotten mining records, probably stashed away in some old shack or found among the debris, they discovered a series of old documents, maps, and logbooks. These weren't just random notes from miners long gone. They were detailed records, carefully mapping out a hidden network of other abandoned gold-rich sites, secret hotspots, all somehow connected back to this very trommel they had just found. Some fans online immediately started buzzing, wondering if this was a bit too perfect for TV, maybe a little bit of produced drama to spice things up. Others were totally hooked, seeing it as Parker uncovering a genuine historical treasure map. The more Parker and his team studied these old faded records, the clearer the picture became. This rusty trommel wasn't just some standalone piece of old mining equipment that got left behind. It was a central piece of a much larger, secret mining operation, one that had been lost to time, its story almost completely erased from history. The old logs described specific locations, sometimes with cryptic clues, that supposedly held insanely high concentrations of gold, areas that had been marked by the original miners, but for some reason never fully worked or perhaps abandoned in a hurry. It was like Parker had stumbled into an old prospector's dream, discovering a treasure map leading to a fortune that had been sitting right under everyone's noses, in plain sight but unseen for generations. Parker himself could hardly believe what he was looking at. If these old records were even half right, then the gold they'd already found in and around the trommel was just the tip of a colossal iceberg. Who knew how much more gold was still out there, buried beneath the Yukon wilderness, just waiting for someone with the key, and now Parker had it.
Thanks for getting this done. It's a nice setup. I like the plant. And there's always going to be a few quirks to work out, but I like it so far.
The hunt was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. This old trommel was more than a machine. It was a signpost pointing the way to potentially one of the biggest gold discoveries in modern gold rush history, maybe even that legendary $400 million motherlode the show's intro hinted at. But before he could go chasing after new, untouched gold sites based on these old maps, Parker knew he had a promise to keep, in a way. He had to bring the original beast, the abandoned Trommel that started it all, back to life. And this wasn't just about fixing a machine, it was about restoring a piece of history. Every dent in its thick steel, every rusted-out gear, every worn-down panel told a story of the miners who had come before, people who had battled against the same harsh elements, driven by the same golden dreams. This Trommel had seen years of brutal, relentless use, filtering thousands upon thousands of tons of dirt, sand, and rock. It was clear that this machine, in its prime, had been an unstoppable force. Some viewers really connect with this historical angle, loving the idea of bringing the past back to life. Parker, understanding the importance of this, wasn't taking any chances with its restoration. This wasn't a job for quick fixes and hope. He brought in specialists, old-timer mechanics who knew these ancient machines, and modern engineers who could figure out how to blend the old with the new. Every single repair had to be done perfectly because one small mistake, one overlooked weakness in the old metal, could jeopardize the entire operation when they fired it up. Hours turned into grueling days, and days turned into weeks. The team worked tirelessly, like surgeons on a giant metal patient, rebuilding the Trommel piece by painstaking piece. They had to custom-make parts that hadn't existed for 50 years, wrestle with bolts rusted solid, and figure out how the original miners even put this monster together. And then, finally, after an epic struggle that tested everyone's patience and skills, the beast roared back to life. Watching that fully restored ancient Trommel turn and run again, probably for the first time in half a century, was nothing short of breathtaking for Parker and his crew. It processed dirt with a shocking efficiency that no one expected from such an old design, its giant drums spinning, separating out gold nuggets and fine particles with incredible speed. It wasn't just a mining machine anymore. It was a symbol of forgotten potential, a ghost from the gold rush past, brought back from the dead to work its magic once more.
That's really nice. I really like this plan.
The sheer sight of it, a relic reborn, was a victory in itself. When Parker Schnabel fired up that old Trommel, the pressure was massive. This wasn't just about testing a machine, it was about proving their wild gamble wasn't a mistake. Against all odds, that rusted beast roared to life and started spitting out gold. A lot of it. More than anyone expected. The twist? One side of the drum was producing way more gold than the other. Something was off, and fast. But this wild success sparked something bigger. Old machines were suddenly valuable again. With tech upgrades and smart thinking, Parker didn't just strike gold. He changed the game, showing the past still had power. The roar of the resurrected ancient Trommel wasn't just the sound of gears turning and steel groaning. It was the voice of Klondike history, finally speaking again after decades of silence. For Parker Schnabel, the deep mechanical rumble was more than a sign of progress. It was a declaration, a challenge met. As gold-laced pay dirt began to stream from the machine's weathered core, it became clear that this wasn't just a sentimental side project. This was a functioning, money-making beast, restored, revived, and repurposed to serve a new era of mining ambition. But just as the initial euphoria settled into confident momentum, something unexpected emerged. A mechanical mystery. One side of the massive rotating drum was consistently yielding significantly more gold than the other. For a meticulous, data-driven operator like Parker Schnabel, this wasn't a minor inconvenience. It was a full-blown problem, a riddle wrapped in rust demanding to be solved. Because in Parker's world, every inefficiency is a dollar lost. Every flaw, no matter how small, threatens to snowball into season-crippling setbacks. And this uneven gold recovery wasn't just costing time, it was potentially bleeding ounces into the tailings. For a man chasing millions in gold, even a 5% loss could mean the difference between meeting budget or falling short. This is the beating heart of Gold Rush. What the casual viewer sees as a weekly dose of heavy machinery, breakneck timelines, and dramatic weigh-ins is underpinned by relentless fine-tuning. Every wash plant, whether it's Parker's beloved Slucifer, Tony Beat's antique dredges, or a Frankenstein field unit, requires constant calibration.
And if it works, bingo. And if not, well, so be it. But there's no reason why I wouldn't work.
Yeah.
I think she's a go.
I think so too.
Let's get out of here.
An unknown fact for many fans, a 1-degree shift in sluice angle, a slight hiccup in water pressure, or an inconsistent material feed can quietly send thousands of dollars worth of fine gold drifting off with the tailings. So when the resurrected Trommel started acting up, Parker and his crew sprang into action. It wasn't just about fixing a problem, it was about protecting the entire operation. With flashlights, grease guns, and diagnostics in hand, they descended on the Trommel. The likely suspects, worn or uneven screen sections inside the drum, or irregularities in the internal water spray bars, both critical components. Unlike modern wash plants which use vibrating decks, spiral sluices, or specialized recovery mats to maximize yield, this vintage Trommel relied on sheer rotational force and gravity separation. Any imbalance in the water distribution or a blockage in one of the screens could tip the gold recovery off its axis. This is where Parker's hands-on leadership truly shines. Viewers often praise his sharp business mind, but in moments like these, it's his mechanical curiosity and willingness to get dirty that set him apart. He's not the kind of boss who waits in the truck. He's crawling through mud, tracing spray lines, tapping on steel drums, and tossing around theories with his crew. That attitude turns machines into tools of precision, not just brute force. After a meticulous inspection, the crew likely found that one side of the drum had more wear than the other. A section of mesh may have been corroded, or uneven sediment buildup might have blocked crucial water jets. The solution? Not a patch job, but a re-engineering. New screen panels, retrofitted water systems, perhaps even adding custom spray nozzles to balance the wash. They were modernizing a relic without compromising its soul. As the upgrades were implemented, the difference was immediate. Gold recovery began to equalize, and production numbers climbed. The once maddening imbalance became a masterclass in adaptation, and Parker, always looking ahead, realized the Trommel wasn't just paying off in ounces, it was unlocking secrets. Because tied to this machine was something much bigger, the mysterious Ghost Miner's map. The old machine hadn't been randomly abandoned, it had been placed here for a reason. And as the Trommel's gold output climbed, so did the credibility of the map's other clues. The site, long considered tapped out, suddenly showed signs of renewed richness.
Inside the barrel of this is all custom, and I think you'd have a hard time, like, it'd be a full-time job for somebody.
It was a revelation. If this long-forgotten equipment had been parked at such a productive spot, what else had the old-timers discovered and quietly marked down before the boom ended? That $400 million number, once laughed off by skeptics as a pipe dream, began to take shape as a plausible, if still daunting, projection. An unknown fact about the Klondike's early history. Many mining sites were never fully exploited. The tools of the 1890s to 1930s couldn't process large volumes of material efficiently, and when gold prices dropped, or the ground froze early, claims were simply abandoned. Not because they were empty, but because they were uneconomical at the time. Now, with modern tech and Parker's obsessive attention to detail, those claims were being reevaluated with fresh eyes. The resurrected Trommel served as both a proof of concept and a historical anchor. Every bucket of gold-laced gravel it processed was a nod to the miners of the past and a signal flare to Parker's crew. We're on to something big. The Trommel wasn't just a machine anymore, it was a bridge, a link between the past and the future of mining in the Klondike. It proved that forgotten tech, combined with modern insight, could still produce at scale. More than that, it turned the Ghost Miner's map from a dusty curiosity into an operational blueprint. And for Parker Schnabel, this meant one thing: go bigger. Now that the machine was optimized, Parker could scale the operation, expand the dig site, cross-reference more entries on the Ghost map. Every gold flake recovered added weight to the legend and urgency to the mission. It wasn't just about making money. It was about rewriting what people believed was possible in a place already written into gold mining lore. The game had changed, not with drones, not with AI, but with sweat, steel, and a resurrected relic that refused to die. And at the center of it all, a young miner with an old soul, chasing history with every scoop. Was this incredible Trommel find a 1 in a million lucky break for Parker? Or has he truly unlocked a $400 million secret that will change gold mining forever? Hit like, subscribe, and tell us if you think there's more legendary gold hidden in old bones.